Okay, we have a very, very quick learning target, and it's one of those things that comes in handy a lot in this class. It's called finding a reference angle. And the first thing you're going to have to do, you want to write this down in your notes, what a reference angle is. I'm going to draw a picture of it so you have kind of a visual picture, a visual definition, and we'll actually write the definition. So a reference angle, you can have them in all four quadrants. I'm going to just draw one in the second quadrant. This is my reference angle. I just called it theta. A reference angle is an acute angle formed by the terminal side of an angle and the x-axis. Acute angle formed by the terminal side and the x-axis. So this reference angle, if this is my terminal side, the reference angle always goes to the x-axis. Always goes to the x-axis. It's an acute angle. It's less than 90, formed with the terminal side that goes to the x-axis. I said you can have them in all four quadrants. You can have a reference angle here in this quadrant, so you'd go from the terminal side in the first quadrant down to the x-axis. There's another one. You could have one here in the third quadrant, then you go up to the x-axis. You can have one in the fourth quadrant. Here's your terminal side. You go up to the x-axis because you always have to be acute, less than 90, and you always have to go to the x-axis. So acute angle formed from the terminal side and the x-axis. That's why I wrote those in capital and underlined those, so it'll help you remember. What we're going to do is we are going to find some reference angles. So I'm going to draw a 30-degree angle. There's my 30-degree angle. What's its reference angle? Well, first quadrant is easy. The reference angle of 30 just goes back down to the x-axis, so its reference angle is just 30. Anything in the first quadrant is easy. It's whatever it is. So if I put in a 60-degree angle, its reference angle, 60 degrees, because it's in the first quadrant. First quadrant's easy. It's in the first quadrant. So let's look at second quadrant angles. I'm going to draw an angle of 100 degrees. So from here to here, 100 degrees. Now I want the reference angle. The reference angle goes from the terminal side to the x-axis, and it has to be acute. So it can't go this way because that'd be obtuse. It has to be acute. So it's this angle. And with some simple math, that's 180 minus 100. So my reference angle is 80 degrees. That's it. We'll just do one in each the four quadrants. So we did first quadrant, second quadrant. Pick an angle in the third quadrant. Let's say, what do we think that is? Let's say 225. This angle is 225 degrees. So if I want its reference angle, I don't go this way. I want a small acute angle that goes to the x-axis. So in the third quadrant, I have to go back up. So my reference angle is right here. My reference angle, with some math again, this time we know the whole thing's 225, so I have to go back up to here. So I'm going to take 225 minus 180, because we know this line's 180, and that gives me 45 degrees. That reference angle, 45 degrees. So first quadrant up here, second quadrant, we did 180 minus the angle. Third quadrant, we took our angle minus 180. Fourth quadrant is a little bit different than the other three, because you have to remember, if this is 180, this is 360 degrees. So remember that when you're doing your reference angle. Let's put this angle down here. Let's say it's 310 degrees. So from here all the way over to the terminal side is 310. Your job is to figure out the distance. That's what the reference angle is. The angle from here to here. What is that angle? Your reference angle. With a little bit of math, 360 minus 310. So my reference angle is 50 degrees. Great. Why do we do them? Well, you're going to see when we start our unit circle tomorrow, Thursday, that when you have an angle like 30 degrees, the sine of 30 equals 1/2, and you can put that in your calculator. The sine of 30 degrees is 1/2. Well, 150 is also, this is 150. Its reference angle is also 30, right? These two have the same reference angle, this one and this one, same distance to the x-axis. So the sine of 150 is also 1/2. We can even carry this on into the third quadrant. The third quadrant, the angle that I would be talking about would have to be 30 degrees from my x-axis right here. So this would be 210 degrees. The sine, and you put this in your calculator, of 210, you would get negative 1/2. And it's a negative because you're below the x-axis, which is something we're going to learn. I'm just showing you why. You don't have to know that today. What you have to know for today is how to find a reference angle. All I'm showing you is why. 'Cause sometimes we do things and I want to make sure you understand why. Because when we start using our unit circle tomorrow, this is going to make things a lot easier. So, to recap, to find a reference angle, it's an acute angle formed with the terminal side and the x-axis. And just for fun, a little challenge, even on the video, because you will have a challenge like this tomorrow in class. Let's say here's 40 degrees. I want to know the 4 angles, so 1 in each quadrant, that have 40 as a reference. So hit pause for a second. You hit pause and try to get the answer. All right, my 4 answers. The first one I already have, 40 degrees, right? It's first quadrant, so one of these angles is 40. You already have it. In the second quadrant, it would be here. So if this is 40, we could use some math and figure out that that's 140. In the third quadrant, we know this distance is 40. So 180 plus 40 is going to give me 220. And in the fourth quadrant, here's one more. So we know this is 40. We know this is 360. So 320. There you go. Those are those 4. In class tomorrow, you need to be able to find reference angles and do a couple of little challenging questions where you have to find 4 angles that have the same reference. Okay, see you in class. Make sure to write down any questions in the discussion.